Welcome to Generationally Speaking. I am your host, Reverend Irene Smith, aka Miss Irene for all my young peeps. I'm so excited about being the Bible study teacher, and I want to welcome you today to this awesome platform where I share with my co-hosts from Gen X's, Gen Y's, and Lord have mercy, even some Gen Z's. I'm excited about it. And so today I want to welcome Eric Smith. Eric, welcome. Eric is entrepreneur and has a tech company. So
Yes.
welcome, Eric.
Thank you.
And Kimberly, I want to welcome Kimberly. Kimberly is employed in the federal sector, as well as she has her own business,
Yes.
Joyful
Joy make a journey.
Joy Maker Journeys. All right. And I also am excited about welcoming our other co-host today. Joining us at the table is Minister Janice Glover Jones, or Janice Glover Jones, who is also in the federal sector and doing some other things as well. Welcome.
Right. Excited to be here.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, let's jump right in. Today we're going to be talking about decisive moments. Decisive moments in our lives, pivotal moments which stay with us, change us, set our trajectory in either a positive or negative direction. Self-defining moments, critically influencing our behavior and our decisions, propelling us either in a negative or a positive direction. And for those of you who want to know, does she have any more to say about Jacob, Rachel, and Leah? The answer is yes. Yes, yes. It is that narrative is so full of ideas and lessons for us to learn. And when we look at Jacob's life, we see decisive moments. We see decisive moments when he agreed to do what his mother told him to do, to deceive his father. That was a decisive moment. We see a decisive moment when Rachel, when he decided to work 7 years for Rachel, and then ended up with Leah, and worked another 7 years. Eric, would you have done that?
No. Nope.
You didn't even have to think about it.
Nope.
When you're in love, love makes you do some crazy things.
Yes.
Okay. It was another decisive moment when Jacob decided, I've had enough now, with his father-in-law Laban, and he gathers up his wives and his children, and he begins to make his way back home. But in that decisive moment, he had to think about how he left. He left after deceiving his brother, and now he's going back, and he's unsure about how his brother is going to receive him. Another decisive moment. And all of us, every day of our lives, we have decisive moments. And the question is, what do we do with those decisive moments, and who are we listening to? Because depending on who you're listening to might put your trajectory on all kinds of different paths. So let's just start right there. Kimberly,
Yes.
decisive moments.
Yes. I remember when I decided to leave college and go to work for the federal government. And actually, one might say I made a bad choice. But I've been there 33 years and had lots of experiences. But what I had to do is determine if I could continue to fight for financial aid or go and get a job and find another way to pay for my education, which is what I did.
So your decisive moment came when you had to make a choice
Yes.
about either staying in college or going to work.
Yes.
And you decided.
And I decided to go to work because it offered me more opportunities to pay for my education.
Okay.
How long did it take you to come to that decision?
Well, it took me staying on my friends' dorm room floors and deciding that the system wasn't set up for people like me, unfortunately, who came from a middle class family. So I wasn't on a poor sector as far as the system is concerned. So the financial aid wasn't readily available. And so I had to decide that I needed to do more with my life. So I got the opportunity to work, and that's what I did.
Okay. So decisive moment, Eric.
Well, I have a couple.
Okay.
Right? But one is just when I decided to leave the government.
Right.
So the exact other side of where you were.
Yes.
So I worked in the government for, I guess, about 5 years or so. And I went into government kind of knowing that I didn't want to stay.
Yes.
But, you know, leaving that security and everything else that
Wow.
comes with that was a difficult thing.
Sure.
Yes.
And the way it happened was also difficult. Didn't make it any worse because I ended up leaving and not having a job.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
but it all worked out.
Yeah.
Didn't really know at the time it was going to work out as well as it did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of just saw it, to be honest. I was like, all right, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll move back in with my parents.
Had that cushion.
You know, yeah, I had
Yes.
that cushion, I had that luxury, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's one of those things I tell people all the time. I don't know if I would make the same decision now,
Yeah.
but the timing was perfect for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Minister Jones, when I think about you, your decisive moment, going into ministry,
Yeah.
I mean, that had to be a difficult place, a difficult thought.
It was very difficult, and I had so I was Moses, right? I was making every excuse of why I could not go into ministry, and then and I was wondering what my husband would say and what not necessarily family members, but I was nervous about talking to Pastor Neil
Right.
at the
right.
time. And I knew his original background, but even knowing that you had already gone before me, Reverend Rice had already gone before me, I was still very nervous. And so I had scheduled an appointment to go and meet with him. And the appointment ended up getting canceled because he ended up visiting someone at the hospital. So I took that. I was like, okay, God, then you don't want me to say nothing. Maybe I got this all wrong. I ain't sure I'm supposed to be doing this. And, you know, and start second guessing yourself.
Right.
So then the second appointment happened. And something happened and we didn't have an appointment. I was like, okay, God, I heard you. I'm missing the signals here. That's it. And when I finally, I'm at the church one day and Pastor Neil said, hey, come on in and talk to me. I didn't have an appointment scheduled. And he says, you know, he goes, is there something you want to tell me? And I'm looking, I'm like, God, what are you doing? So I said it to him. He was like, yeah, I know. And so then he starts saying, you know, once you put your hand on the plow, you can never look back. And I want you to go to school for 2 years. And, you know, what really got me was the night that I finished my 2 years in school. I took my final. And the women's ministry was having the holiday celebration. And going to school, I would pass the church. And so when I took my final, we were released. And I said, wow, I actually have time to go by the women's ministry. I turned in the parking lot and I said, no, I didn't bring anything. I didn't sign up to bring anything, so I'm not going to go. So I go out of the church parking lot. And I get to 7-Eleven, and the Spirit says, go back. They won't mind if you come and didn't bring anything. I turn around, I come back in the church parking lot, and I talk myself out of it. And I leave. I go home. And I get the call that night that Pastor Neil had actually passed.
Wow.
It's that same night. And that took me to a place where I go, God, I must have this all wrong. And again, I started second guessing my calling and if I had actually heard him. And I completed 2 years of school, and how is it that the night that I take my final exam, he's gone home? And so that went through me for a loop for a good period of time.
Yeah. I think there are decisive moments in all of our lives when we are faced with making a decision as to whether we're going to do something right or wrong, or whether or not we're going to listen to the Spirit of God. And God speaks to all of us.
Yep.
It's just whether or not we want to listen. Now, we put different labels on the voice. We say, something told
Tell
me.
it, yep.
I had an inkling. But it's the Holy Spirit that resides in all of us that are speaking. And so we all have to make those decisions, and they don't always come easy. And I think, I'm sitting here at the table and I'm listening to you all, and you all make it sound so clean, without struggle, without I decided this and this. But Kim, for the young person listening, and they are wrestling with, going to college or getting a job, they're wrestling with that, and I want you to talk about that wrestling that you did. I mean, it just wasn't,
Yeah, because sometimes it sounds like it's a good choice, but then there are all these other things, and you're second guessing.
Yeah.
It makes more sense to get an education so that you can, in fact, excel, right, with your education. But going to work, especially for the federal government, you become a slave. I'm so glad you broke out. But you become a slave to the job because of the comfort that it provides you and the security.
Keep your job if you work it.
Yes, but then at the same time, I was able to get a lot of my classes paid for by the job.
Okay. So in those decisive moments, you have to think about, you have to try as best you can to see the picture, the larger picture as best you can.
Yeah.
Having a plan. So Eric, he's like, I had a plan, but my plan fell through.
Well, I think one of those, I think sometimes people get in certain moments and they believe that the answer is black and white and yes and no.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But I think at the end of it, whatever decision you made, whether it be yes or whether it be no, whether it be to leave this place and go someplace else, whether it be with a person or no, whatever that decision may be, at some point you have to just believe that it was the right decision.
Yeah.
No matter what the outcome is. The outcome should not dictate if it was a good or bad decision for you.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sorry, through every decision that I've made, good or bad, I have been able to take something from it.
Right. And I think Minister Jones brings up something, another aspect is that when we're making these decisions, sometimes we're always thinking about what will somebody else say.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Every time it's like, what will somebody else say? How will somebody else view this?
And not only that, in the midst of making that decision, I actually had one of the females at the church. She came to me and she says, so I heard you're going to school to be a minister. And I said, yes. Now I'm thinking she's coming for, oh, good job. I'm going to pray for you, confirm. She said, oh, so you too have been duped by the devil. And I was like, wow, right? We're on the parking lot. I'm like, okay. So you talk about that struggle, right? And so now I'm in school and I'm like, am I hearing things? It makes you so much second guess. And a lot of it, I didn't necessarily share with people. So I kept a lot of it to myself. And then you begin to internalize. And I realized what that was doing. And I think she meant well. And the irony of it, all of it is this individual is now in ministry.
Wow.
Wow.
And I think you bring up a great point is that, affirmation. In those decisive moments, sometimes we look for affirmations, but God, if it's not a God affirmation that we're looking for, then it's, and of course I'm the Bible study teacher, so I'm going to talk about God. So, it's praying and seeking God's face and His direction. And God's direction is not always as crystal clear as people might make you believe. It is not. But you know, because of your faith and your trust in God, that you're going the right way, even though it seems like you're taking a step back.
Right.
But God is really propelling you in the direction that He wants you to go.
So I have a question, especially for the folks in ministry.
Right.
Right. So sometimes in these decisive moments, especially when we explain them now, like we may not go into the level of detail of, for myself, it was, I didn't have 6 months of savings.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't have, didn't really have any money saved up, right? And the thought process of sitting down thinking, you really don't know when your next check is coming.
Right.
Right? And at least for me, that worked in a way where, you know, when your back is up against the wall, you make things happen. You just
Yeah.
do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But when you're entering ministry,
Yeah.
Right.
right, it's almost like you have this perception of you have to be perfect. Right? From the
Yeah.
outside looking in, it's almost like you have to have this perception of, oh man, you know, this person's entering ministry, that means, you know, they don't curse and they don't do this and their whole life is perfect.
You
and,
walking the straight and narrow.
you are walking the straight and narrow.
365.
Yeah, so I just wanted you all to kind of elaborate on that decision to go into the ministry, that time when, you know, you didn't have a lot of females in ministry.
Yeah.
Just in general, especially black females, you just didn't have it, right? And so going up against that and just in that environment, and then going into this ministry, and the ministry always, you know, you have to have this glossy look all the time. Can you just, you know, kind of talk through some of those things?
Yeah. So my entry into ministry is probably a little different, maybe, because I had no desire. I had no desire for ministry, none whatsoever.
Nothing.
And so when God spoke to me about going into ministry, I spoke back to God and I said, oh, by the way, God, I'm a female. And so, no, And then I said, well, God, I know some other women. And I called them by name. And I said, I think they would be much better than me. So I said to God, I'm not going into ministry, period, until I meet somebody who tells me, who don't know nothing about me, and asks me if I'm in ministry. That's what I said to God. And I kept it to myself. I didn't tell nobody. So one day I was out, had stopped to get some gas. It was cold. Had stopped and got a pizza for my children. The van was shut up tight. It was winter months. And I saw this man at the gas pump. And I said to myself, he must be begging for money. And I was thinking, did I have some change or something I could give him? Because I went in and paid for the gas, came back out. And so he started talking to me. And he said, he started talking. He said, are you in ministry? And I looked at him and I laughed to myself because I remember what I told God. I said, God, I'm not going into ministry. I said, nope, I am not in ministry. He said, well, you will be. And I looked at him and I started taking, and the more he talked, he kept on talking and talking about me, about things and then this and that. And I looked at him and I said, wow, he must not have been out here on the street very long because he had the most beautiful teeth I have ever seen in my life. And so I kept on talking to him and I said, well, what is your name? And he said, my name is Elder. And I said, Elder? He said, yeah, like from the Bible. I was like, oh. So that was a decisive moment because God sent for me that angel to say. And then he said to me, which I knew, which I knew it could only be from God, give me some of that food you have. And I'm thinking, I only got pizza. And how does he know what I have? I don't smell it, and you can't see it because of I said, well, all I got is pizza. He said, I'll take it. I said, okay, well, I'll give you some of it. So then I said, I'll tell you what, I'll come by and pick you up. Where do you live? I'm going to take you to church with me. And so he told me he lived in over on Martin Luther King Avenue in a shelter, blah, blah, blah. So I went looking for the shelter. There is no shelter on Martin Luther King Avenue. I went back to the gas station just to see if I could see him. I could not see him. It was a fence up. And I asked the man, how long that fence been up? Because I saw that the person walked straight back. He said, that fence has always been there. I said, okay, God. With that, I went and said, I wrote a letter to Pastor Coates and said, hey, been called to the ministry.
Neil.
God wanted me, Pastor Neil. God's called me to the ministry. I thought you needed to know. That was it. So decisive moments that we are controlled and we're impacted by our environment. And so even though people have this thought that ministers are perfect people when you get that calling, the truth of the matter is most ministers wrestle with that calling because they recognize that they're so far from being perfect and who God will use is like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And so and I think that's those decisive moments and then being authentic.
Yep.
You have to be
You have to be
authentic.
authentic.
You need to be authentic in your ministry to show people that God is still working on you.
Yeah. And I told you I was Moses, right? So I was playing a list to God of everything that was wrong with me and why I was not the person to go into ministry. And I didn't have all my ducks in a row. I wasn't doing the straight and narrow. I was still going to the club sometimes on Fridays, and I'm going, no, God, this ain't, I must be mistaken here. This is not me. So you do wrestle with because we tend to put people on pedestals in certain positions and what their position hold. But at the end of the day, they're still flesh and blood. But we tend to forget about that. And we don't when you're wrestling with the call, right?
That actually reminds me when I wrestle with doing the right thing.
Yes.
Oh my God, it has been many times where I did not want to help out someone that I didn't like. And they would stay on my mind so much. It's like, I don't want to do it. I am not the right person.
Right.
But I can be taking a shower and it's like, yeah, you got that book over there you need to share. No.
Yeah.
Yes. And so when I think about Jacob, when he was on his way back home, the scripture talks about how he wrestled with the angel of the Lord all night long. He wrestled. And so sometimes we have to wrestle with decisions. We have to wrestle with making the right decision. Sometimes you got to step away from some folk.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Sometimes you got to step away from some folk because it's just not the right. It's just not they're not going in the direction you need to go in. And in that decisive moment, you've got to make up your mind. Which way am I going to go?
Yeah. So you talk about stepping away from some folks. So one decisive moment for me was, I recall I was 19 and the church that we had originally been going to had a split. And some of us went with one pastor and another one stayed at the church. And I actually went with this pastor. He was a younger pastor, and he was, the church split because he was getting a divorce from his wife.
Wow.
And he was dating another lady. And in the midst of dating that lady, I recall, I looked at her and I said, she looked like she's expecting. And so I went to him and I asked him, I said, is she expecting? And he said, no, she's not. I was 19 years old. I'm sitting here. I'm trying to do the right thing. I've given my life to Christ and I'm trying to live for Christ. Well, it turned out that he lied to me. And that was a decisive moment for me because I told him, I said, I wasn't looking for you to be perfect. I was looking for you to be truthful.
All right.
And you lied to me.
Yeah.
And I can't come here and fellowship anymore. And that was a decisive moment because I left friends and I left family there. And I couldn't do it.
So just real quick, so as we talk through these decisive moments and as you kind of tell your stories, and now you can kind of think of, because when you tell that story, one thing is you have two sides of it, right? You have your side,
And then,
which was that decisive moment for you, but then you also have the other side, which was a decisive person
for him.
Right? And made a decision to say what he was going to say during that time. So one thing I want to kind of ask everyone, when do you notice your decisive moment was actually a decisive moment?
So I want to just close on that thought at Psalms 25, 4 and 5. It says, make me to know your ways, O Lord. Make me to know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day. So it's right there that we have to allow God and hear God, hear God speaking through us through the Holy Spirit, that he's giving us direction. It might not be step 1, step 2, step 3, but it'll be enough for you to know which step to take next. It might not be the brightest light that you want, but it'll be sufficient light to let you know that you're going in the right direction. You won't be wrestling. you'll have a peace of mind. And so to the studio audience that's looking in, I want to say to you all of us have decisive moments, and you've got to make sure that you hear God our Father, Jesus Christ our Savior, and the Holy Spirit our teacher, and that when we allow our ears to hear so that we can move in the right direction. Well, for now, we want to say to you, be inspired, dare to dream, be informed through the Word of God, and be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Amen.
Amen.